Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here today to talk about Toonami's ratings from this past Saturday, August 27th, 2022. At the top of the block, we have Primal at a .10, Lupin, Lashihime, almost got ahead of myself there. Yashihime at a .08, Lupin the Third Part 6 at a .06, One Piece Pod of .06, followed by an episode at a .05, Naruto Shippuden at a .04, Blade Runner Black Lotus at a .03, and Made in Abyss at a .03. Most of the ratings this past week were either the same, and with the exception of Yashihime, those that did change went down a little bit, especially at the end of the block when you get to Naruto and the two reruns. I mean, if you look at the two reruns, like for example, Blade Runner Black Lotus, the total viewership, not just viewership in the 18 to 49 age group, I mean, of all the TVs in the United States, around 79,000 people were watching. For Made in Abyss, 75,000. By comparison, this next upcoming week is the start of the college football season, and I guarantee you there's going to be at least a couple games where there's going to be more people in the stands than there were people watching throughout the whole country. Admittedly, it's apples to oranges considering that this is at 3:30 in the morning, but just a nice little comparison there. Primal went down a little bit, but it's still at a .10, which, I mean, it's so hard to get a bearing on what's a good number these days. Honestly, I'm starting to lean towards just considering anything above a .1 to start a block a good number, which by that definition means Primal did an alright week. Loop on the third is it just bleeds out the rest of the block. I mean, when your third shows a .06, there's very little room to improve. And this week nothing built on it, which is an improvement, I guess. Because One Piece was slightly below it with its first episode. And the second one was even lower than that. Yashahime went up 1/100th, so I guess if you have to give this week a winner, it would be Yashahime, Princess Half Demon. And only other news I could think of, because this has been a bland ratings week, there's not that much to talk about, especially since I could say the whole dole, like, what do you think's gonna be on next when we already know that sometime in a few weeks from now, October 1st, we're getting Housing Complex C, and we're probably, this part's not been announced, but we're probably getting it at the start of the block at midnight. I can't imagine it being any other slot than the first slot. But I could talk about how there was that announcement earlier, I think a few days ago, where Warner Brothers Discovery actually clarified saying that, oh, we're not going to really touch Toonami, which is a really good thing considering the massive backlash really it received from the basic taking a giant scythe to anything animated. Like I already mentioned, like when at first the merger happened, and I pointed out you have this live action shows on TNT getting cut, live action shows on TBS getting cut. The announcement that American Dad is gonna eventually become debut on HBO Max. It's not gonna just debut on TBS. And I'm like, if that's a foreboding, then I can't imagine how hard they're gonna hit something like Cartoon Network, which Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Toonami, one can argue you can kind of put that together. At least from a corporate perspective, they're all going to see that as one big entity. And considering that Cartoon Network has underperformed, this to say the least, over the past few years, definitely the past couple years, you knew, especially if they're going to save money, Cartoon Network was going to get just axed to bits. And it did. Like, you had the announcement of all these shows being removed from HBO Max, like OKKO, Infinity Train, Mao Mao. Mao Mao apparently is supposed to have a second season, but we haven't heard anything about that in like 2 years at this point, and a whole bunch of other shows too that people really liked. They got removed from the streaming platforms. It's whole thing, and it's probably being written off, which means that goodbye to ever seeing that outside of maybe DVD releases, and that's still a dubious thing that might not even end up happening. Getting more DVD releases of those things, like it's an ugly situation, and somehow, of all the things that got cut, Toonami will be far and away spared the wrath. It put the metaphorical lamb's blood above its door here. And it might be the one thing on the Warner Media side of things that somehow doesn't get hacked to bits. And my theory why is kind of because it's already been hacked to bits. Right now, look at the schedule. Think about how much money Toonami is spending. Don't look at, like, you can look at like the originals, and that's going to cost a pretty penny. But I'm talking about what do you see on the block now? We're leading off with a rerun, not just a rerun, but an Adult Swim rerun, so that's free. Toonami gets that for free. And then other stuff too. Look at the long runners in One Piece and Naruto Shippuden. No, we locked in that Naruto deal a long time ago. That's pennies on the dollar. We probably got One Piece back because they got a deal from Toei Animation, Toei or I think Toei, that or Viz, for basically pennies on the dollar. And right there. And then look at the other stuff. You have Yashahime, Sunrise, and considering Yashahime, especially season 2, doesn't have much hype behind it, they probably got that for a good deal. And we might have a long running deal for Lupin the Third that we might have had from a dish from like part 5 that might have continued to part 6. And even if it was a new negotiation, I can't imagine Lupin the Third part 6 cost of money. That's a cheap deal. And then you can look at Blade Runner Black Lotus. That's basically free now because it's our own show. And it's already aired on the block. And then Made in Abyss, you're just getting your money's worth because you already aired through it once. You're airing through it. So oddly enough, of all the things on the block, Made in Abyss might be the most expensive to air. Which is interesting considering it's the very last show on the block because it's a rerun. And you can point that, if you're a Toonami, point that to your new masters and Warner Bros. Discovery and say, look, you can't kill us because we're already dead, man. like, it's like, how do you penny pinch when every penny's already been pinched? At that point, it's like, look, might as well, if we can say we have a foothold in anime and don't have to spend that much money on it, let's just keep it around. Let's not touch it. So that being said, I still don't expect any big license names to come up. I mean, honestly, at this point, My Hero Academia Season 6 is up in the air. Like, if you asked me a year ago, I'd be like, oh, okay, they're going to get My Hero Academia to end of time because that is a bell cow for Toonami. But I'm not so sure anymore. We're definitely not getting Made in Abyss Season 2. Partially because we'd have to air the movie because it's one of those situations where the movie is canon, and you would actually have to watch it to understand what the hell we're doing in Season 2. And I've heard rumors. I haven't watched season 2. I haven't even read ahead in the manga or anything. I've heard rumors that Made in Abyss season 2 has been disappointing so far, which is scaring me because this is exactly what I was hearing about The Promised Neverland. And if you watched my 11 video series where I just go mentally insane talking about season 2 of The Promised Neverland, that didn't turn out so well. So I'm a little worried because when season like sometime in the future when like it's all been at least subbed, I'm gonna probably watch it. But like because I don't expect Toonami to get this. I think the odds of Toonami getting are 0%. I mean, we do have Housing Complex C to look forward to in a month, Uzumaki in a year, and 2 Fully Cooley sequels that no one asked for in a year. Ninja Kamui, who everyone forgot ever existed, comes out in a year. And technically not Toonami, but Rick and Morty anime is coming out in like a year. And I might be forgetting something too. But at the same time, I mean, that's probably what you'd look forward to. Don't expect any surprise big names. If we get a new show on Toonami, it's going to be a bargain bin, something that's been around for like a half to a full decade that they think that at least isn't getting much play on subscription services. So you might get a good deal on it. I mean, I'm going to keep saying Tiger and Bunny until it happens, which it might never happen, but who knows? So again, I've deviated from the ratings a lot. Overall, ratings kind of the same as last week, maybe a little bit worse. Thoughts and opinions below. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.